set?
I got my pens, I have wipes, when someone speaks.
That pretty flower.
Well, yeah, there was a thing. The mask and my eye drops. Cough drops.
Always.
I still have my cough drops. I want to know I need 'em.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Rocky Hill Planning and Zoning meeting of July 21st, 2021 to order. I think we have a first item is call to order public hearing at special permit.
Do you have a spiel you have to say before this, or?
No, because now it's
No, you're not in Zoom?
so,
Okay. All right.
No Zoom speech?
no Zoom speech, right?
Special permit application, Larry Valeris, on behalf of Independent Electrical Contractors of New England, proposing a 13,000 square foot private school to provide office space and training and classes for property located at 273 Dividend Road in a BP2 Business Park zoning district, ID 18-085.
Do we have the applicant? For this meeting, we have all 5 commissioners will be seated, except Commissioner Brescia.
Last again.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Commission members. My name is Richard Bird, and I am the Vice President of the Independent Electrical Contractors of New England, also known as in the industry as IEC. Mr. Valeris, our corporate secretary, was planning to attend tonight, but unfortunately, due to some serious health issues which came up with his wife, he was unable to attend. So I will do my best to represent IEC in our application for the special permit before you tonight. Also joining me from IEC is Ms. Allie French, our Executive Director. IEC is a not-for-profit electrical trade organization that has been in business for 30-plus years. It is comprised of electrical contractor members whose interest, among various other things, is the proper electrical and safety training for electrical apprentices and licensed electricians. For their safety, as well as the safety of the public which they serve, IEC is self-funded by its membership and educational programs. For the past 15 years, we have been located in Rocky Hill at 1800 Silestine Highway in an approximately 7,000 square foot space, which no longer accommodates our needs, both from a space and physical building standpoint. We are very pleased that we have been able to enter into a 13,000 square foot 10-year lease agreement with the owner of 273 Dividend Road, also located in Rocky Hill. The town, which we much prefer to be located within, the premises that we are leasing is comprised of 6,000 square feet office and 7,000 square feet of warehouse, as you can see from the overhead photograph, which was provided and was formerly leased by Weston and Sampson, an engineering firm. The building is located in a BP2 building park zone district and has the ID 18085. Handicap parking is existing with additional parking that is adequate for our needs. The 6,000 square foot section of this building will be used for our administration staff, which is usually 3 to 4 people. A boardroom, record-keeping offices, along with some training rooms. The 7,000 square foot section of this building will be primarily used for our hands-on training on specialty tools such as pipe bending, aerial lift safety, and other OSHA-type training modules. Unlike a typical day school, most of our training is done outside the normal business hours. Our apprentice students typically work a full day in the field, gaining hands-on experience under supervision, and then they attend approximately 200 hours of evening classes per year for 4 years. Classes are typically held 2 nights a week for 36 weeks. They earn as they learn. Occasionally, we may hold a special daytime class in the morning from 8:30 to noon for professional development purposes, such as legislative changes, insurance programs, and other trade-related programs. These special classes are held on rare occasions and only once or twice a week, and are limited to 30 to 35 attendees, not much more than a business having a business conference with their employees. Other classes that we hold at our current, other classes that we hold are continuing education classes for electrical license renewals. These classes are typically conducted on Saturdays between 7:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. All classes discussed are filled based on the instructor's experience and the availability. Hopefully everything that I have presented or we have presented so far gives you the understanding of our operation. I would like now to address specific items that are listed in the special criteria regulations. Some of these I may have already covered in my presentation so far. As directed by Kimberly Reekley, the town planner and zoning enforcement officer, we believe that we have fulfilled the requirements to post the public hearing sign in front of the property, notification of all abutters within 500 feet of the property, the list which we obtained from the town records, and provided a certificate of mail as proof that we have notified the property abutters. Additionally, the town advertised the legal notice for tonight's meeting as a purpose of this agenda. I'm just going to now ask Ali French to come up and just go through the special permit criteria.
Good evening, committee members. I appreciate your time in reviewing our application for the special permit. I'm just going to go ahead and cover the criteria questions. 1A, the location and size of the site, the nature and intensity of the operations involved in or conducted in connection with the use, and the location of the site with respect to streets giving access to it are such that the use shall be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development in the district in which it is located, and shall promote the welfare of the town. We do believe that this location is suitable for use by IEC New England for training. All trainings would be conducted inside the building, and as a current taxpayer in the town of Rocky Hill, we would like to keep our business within this town. We do believe that we also promote the welfare of the town and local businesses. A2, that the proposed use shall be of such location, size, and character that in general it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it is proposed to be situated, and shall not tend to depreciate the value of property in the neighborhood, and shall not be detrimental to the orderly development of adjacent properties in accordance with the zoning classifications of such properties. We are not changing the physical size of the existing building or making any modifications to the exterior of the building. We also believe that our proposal for approval of a training facility will not be detrimental to any adjacent properties. B1, the design elements of the proposed development will be attractive and suitable in relation to the site characteristics, the style of the buildings in the immediate area, and the existing and probable future character of the neighborhood in which the use is located. As mentioned, there are no changes proposed to the site characteristics or style of other buildings in the area. B2, the location, nature, and height of buildings, walls, and fences, planned activities, and the nature and extent of landscaping on the site will be such that the use shall not hinder or discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent land and buildings or impair the value thereof. There are no proposed changes as indicated above. B3, the proposed use or activity shall have no adverse effect upon the neighboring area resulting from the use of signs, exposed artificial lights, colored lights of any nature, flashing lights, loudspeakers, or other noise-making devices. Our proposed activities, which are within the building, will not offer any adverse effects on the neighboring area. B4, in cases where it is proposed to convert a structure designed and built originally for other uses, the structure is adaptable to the proposed use from the point of view of public health and safety. This is not applicable. No such changes are being proposed. C, suitable transportation conditions. Number 1, the design, location, and specific details of the proposed use or activity shall not adversely affect safety in the streets, nor increase traffic congestion in the area, nor interfere with the pattern of vehicular circulation in such a manner as to create and augment unsafe traffic conditions. Our proposal should not have any adverse impact on the traffic patterns, circulation, or create any unsafe traffic patterns. As mentioned, some of the training is after hours, so that would eliminate any daytime traffic. Number 3, streets and other rights of way will be of such size, condition, and capacity in terms of width, grade, alignment, and visibility to adequately accommodate the traffic to be generated by the particular proposed use. All existing conditions and not applicable to this special permit request. Section D, adequate public utilities and services. Number 1, the provisions for water supply, sewage disposal, and storm water drainage conform to accepted engineering practices, comply with all standards of the appropriate regulatory authority, and shall not unduly burden the capacity of such facilities. We do believe that there are adequate and existing public utilities and services already in place. Number 2, the proposed use or activity shall provide easy accessibility for fire apparatus and police protection, and is laid out and equipped to further the provision of emergency services. Our proposed use shall not change any of the existing provisions that are available for police, fire, and other emergency services. Section E, environmental protection and conservation. Number 1, appropriate consideration shall be given to the protection, preservation, and/or enhancement of natural resources and unique resources, including, where appropriate, the use of conservation restrictions to protect and permanently preserve such resources and features. We agree and do not see any negative impact to the above. Number 2, appropriate consideration shall be given to the protection, preservation, and/or enhancement of historic and archaeologic resources, including, where appropriate, the use of conservation restrictions to protect and permanently preserve such resources and features. We agree and support this statement. Number 3, appropriate consideration shall be given to the protection, preservation, and/or enhancement of scenic resources, including, where appropriate, the use of conservation restrictions to protect and permanently preserve such resources and features. We agree and support this statement as well. Section F, long-term viability. Adequate provision has been made for the sustained maintenance of the proposed development, structures, streets, and other improvements. We do not feel that this item is applicable to the application, as all are already existing. And finally, Section G, consistency with overall objectives. Number 1, the proposed use or activity does not conflict with the purposes of the regulations as amended. We do not believe that the proposed activities of this application conflict with the regulations. Number 2, the proposed use or activity does not conflict with achievement of the goals, objectives, policies, and recommendations of the Plan of Conservation and Development as amended. We do not believe that this application conflicts any achievements of the goals, policies, or recommendations of the Plan of Conservation and Development. And finally, number 3, the proposed use or activity adequately addresses the health, safety, and welfare of the public in general and the immediate neighborhood in particular. We believe that this proposed application has no adverse impact on the above. I'd like to thank you for your time, and if you have any questions.
Thank you. You're done with your presentation, right?
That's all we have at the
Okay.
moment. But
Thank
again,
you.
I would also like to thank you for your consideration and our request, and look forward to in a favorable decision so that IEC can remain in the town of Rocky Hill.
All right, thank you. I'll go. Anyone in the public who would like to comment on this proposal? Seeing none?
I just want to
Okay.
note for the record that we do have the certificates of mailing.
Okay, thank you. Seeing none, I will start from my left. Commissioner Aglico, any comments?
I do have a couple questions. On your sketch, you hatched out the two sections in the front. Is this whole, you're not taking the whole building, you're just taking the portion of it?
That is correct. We're only taking approximately 13,000 square feet.
So is the building already subdivided?
Yes, I believe it is, I can't think of the name of the other company that's in, it's like K&S.
That's okay, so it's occupied.
It is occupied, yes, sir.
And another question would be signage.
Currently, there is a road sign for Weston and Sampson. We would be just requesting to put our sign in that particular location.
So is that on the building, or is it?
That is currently, yeah, it's on the sign, it's on the
Self-standing?
street, yep.
Okay.
Yep. Which obviously we'd probably have to get another permit for, but
A building permit would be required for that.
Yeah, I was just more concerned about lighting on it, if it's just gonna stay the same. Basically, you're changing.
that is
the
correct.
name.
There is no lighting at this time.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Commissioner DePaul?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Zarelli?
I have nothing.
Commissioner
Nothing.
Commissioner Brescia?
What kind of lighting do you have? You have night classes. Is there lighting there?
Yes, there is exterior parking lighting, a lot lighting that is provided by the owners. It's all pole lighting and some building lighting.
I didn't see any poles. So.
I think and I could be wrong, I think there were three located along the front of the building, along Dividend Road. I know a majority of it is on the building.
I think the building may have wall pack security lighting.
I'm sorry.
I think the building itself may have wall pack security.
Yeah,
lighting.
there are wall packs located within the building.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any comments. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Can I have a
Second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 2, which is public comment. Anyone in the public who would like to speak about proposals that are not, or any topic that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, moving on to item 3, consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Can I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item agenda 4A.
Special permit application, Larry Valeris, on behalf of Independent Electrical Contractors of New England, proposing a 13,000 square foot private school to provide office space and training classes for property located at 273 Dividend Road in a BP2 Business Park zoning district, ID 18-085.
Can I have a motion? Oh,
Before any motions, verify who's on this application.
yes, so Commissioner Aglico, Commissioner Zarelli, myself, Commissioner Mahose, and,
I figured that.
yeah.
Motion to approve special permit application for IECNE for private school on 273 Dividend Road in a BP2 Business Park zoning district, with all staff comments.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, welcome.
Agenda item B, site plan application for a change of use, Sunbelt Rentals Incorporated, proposing a construction equipment rental company on property now vacant from a bus company at 647 Cromwell Avenue in a C commercial zoning district, ID 12-135.
Good evening.
For the record, my name is Peter Alter. I'm a lawyer. I practice law in Glastonbury at the firm of Alter and Pearson. Here tonight with respect to the application for Sunbelt to establish a new business location in Rocky Hill by way of a site plan approval for a change of use on property located at 647 Cromwell Avenue. It's nice to see everyone in person.
Nice to see you too.
The application before you is presented by myself and Scott Jensen, who is Sunbelt's manager for its Hartford operation. Scott can answer any operational questions that the commission may have with respect to this property. As shown on the plan that we submitted as part of our application materials, the site is 4.09 acres. It's located to the rear of Cromwell Avenue and is accessed by a deeded right-of-way that's 50 feet in width. I realize that plans are hard to see sometimes.
Thank you.
You guys are good if you don't want to stay. Oh, you're okay, good. No, thank you.
Congratulations.
He took care of it.
Thank you.
Handed out are a couple of aerial photographs of the site, one showing some the surrounding properties, the second one a little more focused on the site in question, and then a reduced copy of the map that is displayed on the board near me. As some of you may know, the site was last occupied by the Durham Bus Company, which utilized the 4.09 acre site for its bus operations, staging approximately 60 school buses on the site. You can see from the aerial photograph that the buses were parked along the perimeter of the property. The building, the 10,000 square foot building, was used to service those buses as well. Kim has made us aware of the proximity to the Rhodes Landing senior housing to the north of the site, and we recognize that the bus use likely caused some disruption to those residents, particularly the ones that are directly adjacent to the property, with early morning startups and backup noises and the like. The proposed Sunbelt operation is much less intense than this, and I can represent to the commission that there will be no storage of materials on the northerly side of the building, as shown on the site plan, where there is a row of parking where school buses were previously located. All of the equipment that Sunbelt will have for rental on the site will be to the, as you look at it, to the right or the east of the building, and parking for employees and customers will be to the south of the building. Sunbelt does not actually need to utilize as much space as is available on the site, and is very comfortable using the easterly portion of the parking area for the storage of its equipment to be rented. The site is currently zoned commercial, and the application for change of use is to take more intensive use and lessen the intensity of that use to the equipment rental business that Sunbelt operates. We propose no physical changes to the site at all. This is merely a change of use. As noted in our statement of the purpose of the application and some of the history of the site, there was a very unusual action taken in 1977 that indicated that the site zone, which was prior to this was an R40 zone, was changed to a zone referred to as heavy commercial. In the land records, it appears that it was characterized as a variance, even though when you read the document, it seems like it was a zone change. Now, as I know the commission knows, you no longer have a heavy commercial zone in your zoning regulations. You have a commercial zone, and that's the zone we're in. This was an approval for a heavier commercial activity, and as I'm sure the commission is also aware, under our law, variance goes with the land, is perpetuated no matter how the zoning regulations change thereafter. We don't think that this necessarily is applicable to us. We're a commercial activity, a rental of equipment, and so we think we fit into the commercial zone as well. But you should, I think, part of your application materials is you ask whether any variances have been granted on the site, and I want you to be aware of this particular action that was taken some 45 years ago. And it may be how the entire bus operation was established there, I don't know. We believe our proposal is consistent with the current zoning as a commercial activity, being much less intense and retail in nature, that is retail rental. Sunbelt has entered into a long-term lease with the owners of the property to utilize the site. The current plan is that their shoring division will make the most use of this site. For those of you not familiar with construction jargon, and I certainly needed to be educated by the Sunbelt people, shoring equipment would be the equipment that you see in large construction projects where excavation occurs and the sides of the excavation have to be supported to provide safety for the workers. So those boxes that are dropped into trenches for people to work in, shoring that's put along the sides of excavation are principally the materials that will be rented from this site. It's not to say that Sunbelt doesn't do other things, because they do. Sunbelt is a national, multinational corporation with more than 900 locations in the United States and Canada. They're in the process of opening another 300 locations over the next 3 years. They selected the location in Rocky Hill because it is ideally suited for this activity. They don't need a site that has great visibility from a roadway. Their clientele comes to them because of the products that they offer for rent. So it's a destination for their customers. They don't have any drive-by business that they have to attract. So this is an ideal site for them, located about 500 feet back from Cromwell Avenue, but it's also adjacent to state highway access, so that it works very, very well for them. And they would be very, very pleased to be able to operate from this site. Other kinds of equipment that Sunbelt offers for rental are general construction equipment, industrial tools, pumps, generators, climate control and HVAC equipment, shoring solutions, which we've discussed, scaffolding, mitigation and restoration equipment. It is not planned that this would be a site where the typical boom pieces of equipment that you see for access to higher levels of a building. That equipment is located in other Sunbelt locations in Connecticut. It's not to say that there won't be one occasionally parked there as it's in transit from one place to another, but that's not the intended use for this site at the present time. And they certainly would not make a practice of having equipment there that would be visible from anywhere else. So you won't have a situation where a boom is there, is up for any particular purpose. The shoring division, which will have principal control of the site, does not provide that equipment as part of its operations. Sunbelt Rentals offers about 550, has about 550,000 pieces of rental equipment available, has over 15,000 employees. It's a major national company that is very interested in coming to Rocky Hill to establish a facility here. With respect to compliance with the requirements of site plan approval for a change of use, I've provided you with a written statement of the purpose of our application, and I've summarized that in my presentation tonight. Under Section 9.C.4, as required for site plan approval, we provided additional information, and I will not read it word for word, but summarize what I submitted in writing as part of our application materials. As I indicated, the site at 647 Cromwell Avenue has been a school bus yard for many, many years. The existing building has been used to service those vehicles. The repurposing of the building and the site to serve as a rental center for construction project equipment will reduce the intensity of the use of the site, reduce the impact on adjoining residential properties to the north and west. And with that reduced nature and intensity, the proposed use is well suited to the location, particularly with access to the state highway system directly on Cromwell Avenue and the interstate that is very proximate to our location. We have a deeded access, and I think we can safely conclude that this operation will generate much less traffic than the 60 school buses that have been customarily garaged at the site and would come and go on a daily basis. So we place no burden and, in fact, relieve some of the burden of traffic on Cromwell Avenue as a result of that. The operation does not propose to change the size of the building and proposes to reduce the intensity of the use on the site. We don't believe that there will be a loss of value of any of the properties in the neighborhood given the nature of this particular use and the reduction in disturbance that's had been imposed on neighbors to the north in particular. The other adjacent properties immediately located around the site are industrial and commercial in nature, and everything around the site has been developed, so there's no impact on future development with respect to this property. As I indicated, we propose no changes to the site or the building. Hours of operation for Sunbelt are Monday through 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. They never operate on weekends unless it was for some emergency that they had to respond to. There is no early morning activity as has existed on the site in the past. The existing driveway is that's deeded access for this property. No adverse impact on traffic safety and certainly no increase in traffic congestion. As I indicated, the parking areas on the northerly and westerly portion of the site will not be utilized for the display of equipment or the storing of equipment, and thereby will reduce the impacts that were currently existing to those residential properties. We have more than enough parking for the customer and employees that we will have on the site in the south area of the parking lot. There's about 45 spaces there. It's not anticipated that we would ever have a need for anywhere near that number of spaces. Served by public water, public sewer, storm drainage facilities are in place. As a result of prior development, we propose no changes. And the site has ready access for emergency vehicles by way of the driveway from Cromwell Avenue. No natural resources have been identified. We have no wetlands activity We have no historic or archaeological resources on the site, and no scenic resources have been identified on this already developed property. The use by Sunbelt offers long-term viability with a national tenant with a commitment to providing the rental of construction equipment for the construction industry in Connecticut. And so we think this is a really good use for a site that doesn't need and provides more than adequate area for the use. Everything that is on the site would be consistent and compliant with your zoning regulations. I've already talked about the variance that was granted, just to make the commission aware of that. The repurposing of an existing commercial property is consistent with the recommendations of your plan of conservation and development with respect to the enhancement of commercial development that has less impact on residential properties proximate to the site. Finally, proposed use will not impact public health, safety, or welfare as it makes use of an existing developed site. And the immediate neighborhood, we think, is benefited by the proposed use, consistent with the commercial development around it and more sensitive to the residential developments to the north and west of the property. We would ask that the commission act favorably on a request for a change of use so that Sunbelt can establish its business at this site. Happy to answer any questions. Mr. Jensen is here if there are operational questions that the commission may have.
Right. I think we'll just start. Commissioner Aglico.
I have no questions.
Me? My question is for Kim. Why are they here? They're in compliance. Building's smaller. They're not doing any changes. It's a less. Is it a change of use though?
Yeah.
It's still commercial. It's still commercial.
Not going to be a bus terminal anymore.
Okay.
It was
No
D.
questions.
Commissioner Zarelli.
I have a question about your landscaping. According to your pictures here, you show all the buses close to the property line, and obviously you guys aren't doing that for storage and everything else, but it does show that there are like non-evergreen plantings on the northern border abutting the Rhodes property, as well as the Murphy Drive. And it seems like the only greenery that you have all year round is on the farmstead side, which is the southern side.
Southerly side.
Is, do you know what your buffer is all around for plantings? And are there any landscaping improvements being done to this site?
We are not proposing any changes to the site. There is, and perhaps it's more clearly shown on the site plan that was submitted. The parking pavement doesn't exactly match with the way the buses were parked on the site. I think that there was a lot of parking of buses in parking spaces that were probably designed for cars, which meant that they expanded over the ends of the parking spaces. I think that's what you see in the picture, particularly on the westerly side of the property. Over time, that will go back to being green. We had not proposed any landscaping at this time since, as indicated, this is a change of use application. Certainly Sunbelt will want its property to look presentable and will take steps to do that, but I don't have a landscape plan to present to you.
Would you happen to know how high all the vegetation is all around for the residents around there? I mean, is it 4 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet? Can they see a bus? Can they see your products? Will these residents around your property see the products on the site?
I believe that the Rhodes Landing property is actually higher in elevation than this site. And as you can see, the Rhodes property planted evergreens along its border to screen it. So I think that they don't see it because of their own screening. I think it was Kim could speak to this perhaps better than me, it was a noise issue more than a visibility issue with the buses, if that's.
It was a combination of noise, and you could look through the screening planted by the roads development and see the buses. But the buses were parked right up against the.
So that will be mitigated by the non-use of the northern part of the
Correct.
property. Okay, and my second question is signage. Do you intend to have any signage on Route 3?
There,
Because right now, those signs are a mess out there, and I just wanted to know if all that's going to be fixed.
we will replace you're right, the signage.
The Peter Pan sign is halfway, not,
Right.
and
So
there's a
all of
central
that
auto
would be
sign.
done. We would come back with a sign package to present once we're ready to do that. We recognize we would have to do that.
That would be the only sign? You wouldn't have any signs leading into the property on the
On the
shared
bi-
drive?
There would only be a directional sign to show
Say
people how
Sunbelt this
to
way.
get there, but no, there would not be what do they call it, Burma shave signs where you have multiple signs? No, we would not have that.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm okay.
Commissioner Roberts?
Just a couple questions so I can better understand what's going to be happening outside the building. As far as intensity and scope being reduced, does that mean that there's not going to be a number of things stored outside now? Or are the material going to be stored inside and then rented out from the interior of the building? Or is there going to be large quantities of construction, shoring, and equipment being stored in piles outside the building?
Let me see if I can show you. Thought that question might come up.
Yeah, it was ready.
So the materials are stored outside. I just asked Mr. Jensen to make sure that this is typical of what would be stored, and then this is how it's transported off the site.
Oh, okay. So this one leads to another question. Based on the size of the materials, are we going to see the potential increase in possible oversized truckloads trying to move off the property and over to the highway? Are any of these loads qualify as oversized truckloads that would take up extra lane space in the roadways?
Typically, there's no oversized. Typically, there is no oversized loads in the shoring division.
If you can mention your name, so.
I'm sorry, Scott Jensen, Sunbelt Rentals, Profit Center Manager, Hartford, Connecticut. So typically, there is no oversized loads that come out of a shoring division. Those all come under a standard load size according to the Department of Transportation.
Oh, okay, okay. And then, you said that one side of the property where the buses are on the north side, that won't have anything, so are we saying that all the storage areas will be on the parts of the property that are adjacent to the non-residential parts of the
Correct.
property?
The storage is planned for the easterly side. Cromwell Avenue is out here, and the storage is planned to be in this area.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for questions.
Commissioner Brescia?
So will any of this equipment be used for emergency use? If, say, there's a major storm or you had to get a piece of heavy equipment moved, could it be at any time of the day or night?
I asked Sunbelt representatives that it's very unusual that this kind of material is needed for an emergency like that. Obviously, if there were an emergency, the answer is yes. They would make the materials available. But under most circumstances, normal operations, it's 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays, nothing on weekends, nothing on national holidays. It's a very controlled operation because most construction projects operate on that same time frame. If there were an emergency where, I don't know, you don't like to talk about things like that, but if there were a building collapse, as we've seen happen in Florida, and people needed shoring, then get it. That's the kind of thing that might happen, and yes, then there would be activity there whenever it was needed. I don't want to not say it wouldn't be.
Would there be any types of hazardous storage of materials there
No,
for any of this heavy-duty equipment?
nope, this is all pure construction equipment.
You said on the north side, there's not going to be any parking on the north side
Correct.
on Rhodes Landing, so those bus parking spaces will all go away?
There will be no vehicles parked there and no equipment stored on the northerly side of the building towards Rhodes Landing.
Okay.
Done. Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and I know you addressed that right up front. And the application talks about the shoring of construction sites and structures, and that's explicitly called out. Is that the primary use? Would
Yes.
that be so?
The shoring division of Sunbelt Rentals is taking control of this site. So that will be the principal activity, will be shoring and those kinds of construction materials.
Is, as you said, I mean, Sunbelt provides equipment, various type of equipments, like general construction, HVAC you had mentioned, lawn landscaping, shoring, site services, including those
Generators.
earth moving and all those things. So will this ever become that site? And because again, the concern I have is, as you said, there won't be any equipment where you have like, boom type, equipment stored outside and they cannot be rested on ground like you have to.
Right, so
So-
what I would say is this, that I've been doing this long enough to not ever say never to anything. What I will say is that we don't have a problem with a condition of your approval that says that if any equipment other than shoring equipment is stored there, that it will not be maintained or retained on the site in an extended, I think that's what you call it, an extended configuration, that it'll be in place without being visible. I think that, and I know, Mr. Chairman, I know what you're thinking of, the sites where they're trying to attract people's attention, so they have 5 of those booms up in the air and they're
And you
bright
can,
colors.
right, and
We have no problem with a condition that says that's not permitted.
right, because again, as I said, Sunbelt offers a lot of equipment, a lot of
And
variety of
as
equipment.
Mr. Jensen told me, he said, look, this is a Sunbelt site, and if a piece of equipment had to be moved from New Haven to Springfield, and for some reason it couldn't make that trip in the time period, it had to be stored somewhere for a day, it could sit there for a day. But it's not, this site is not designated for that, and it would be in transit, and we have no problem with a condition that says that those things can't be displayed in any extended configuration.
Right, because that's my
Um,
primary concern, because no matter how much fencing you put, you can't have
You-
50-foot
No,
fencing,
well, you
so,
wouldn't want a 50-foot fence anyway, so that's, we have no problem with
Okay.
your making that a condition.
all right. And this is the question I want to wanted to clarify is under what commercial type this business falls. Like, so I was trying to see and trying to fit in one of the categories, and I had a hard time.
I
So-
think it's a retail, ultimately, it's a retail business. They rent equipment. It's Taylor rental on steroids, but it's nevertheless a retail business. That's what they do. They rent equipment. Or Aaron's Rentals, where you can rent anything. Those are considered retail businesses, and I think this is as well. It's not, and I want to be clear, it's not a contractor's yard, because this equipment is not there to be operated by a contractor coming back to that site and storing the equipment there and working on it. That's not what this is. So I characterize it as a retail operation.
How about repairs and things like that to the equipment? Would there be any bays where you have a repair? Would you have any drains where,
I
you
am
know?
told that is not part of their operation, that though, first of all, the kind of shoring equipment that's there, the most they would do is clean it. There's really no mechanical methodology to it. And so the answer is that is not anticipated to be an activity that would go on there.
And do they know the height of the shoring that will be stacked on each other, on top of each other? So,
Well, Mr. Jensen indicates that typically it's 10 to 15 feet stacked.
because that again, what that does is that raises, and especially even if you have the fence, once you have that equipment, that shoring on top of each other, it literally creates a wall. A wall that you will see, because if you know, the shoring is, you know, walls on two sides. And if you stack up, it becomes like a wall. So that is another concern I have, where I think we have to understand what it's going to be that is stored outside and the height of those things.
It's, you know, well, I've given you pictures of a
Yep.
typical storage facility. That's exactly
Yep.
what we anticipate having there. First of all, I don't think it's unsightly.
Yep.
Second of all, it's a lot better than 60 yellow school buses in terms of visibility. And if Sunbelt has understood the market correctly, mostly this material is not going to be there. It's going to be out on construction sites. So it's going to come in and go back out. That's the business model.
So those are the concerns I have, comments. Any other comments from anyone? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve site plan application for a change of use Sunbelt Rentals Incorporated for 647 Cromwell Avenue in a C commercial zoning district. With a couple of conditions. The first condition is, sorry? The first condition is no storage of materials on the northern property line as indicated by the applicant. And the second condition is rental equipment on site shall not extend above the tree line screening for extended periods of time, and all staff comments.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? So I think in the,
Who's voting on this one? Me or him?
no, you.
You.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, again, for staff comments, just wanted to make sure that there won't be any boom type of equipment and things like that unless it's in transition somewhere and,
I took
Yeah.
that,
Mr. Chairman, I suspect that the rental company has a policy that prohibits them from stacking that equipment above certain levels because it's probably dangerous. Could we ask that you submit that to the town staff so that we'll have that on file?
Well, we can't go back and forth now. 'cause
Right,
we've already
right.
got a motion on the table.
yeah.
I'm just asking.
Yep.
It's not a mandate.
I think it's more, it's not of the stacking, it's more of a equipment that has a boom and that has a, you know,
I took condition number 2 to.
Yep.
Mine wasn't a condition.
No, so I just, again, I just want to clarify that so that in future, if there are complaints, I want to make sure that there is a good grounds of, action, so.
So that's to staff and not to the.
Staff,
That's
right,
the staff.
right. That's the staff,
Just
so.
Make sure that we're on the same page. That's not to the
Yes.
applicant, that's the staff.
Yes.
Move to
All
vote.
right, we move to vote. All in favor of a motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Appreciate your time.
Agenda item C, pre-application, Belfonte Companies LLC to discuss a possible pre-submission concept under zoning regulations 9.b in the Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-159B for mixed-use development and associated improvements for property located at 2418 Main Street in a TC Town Center zoning district ID 10-184.
And before the applicant
Thank you.
begins, I just want to make sure this is not a public hearing or public is not allowed to comment on the proposal.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then the other thing for the commissioner members, it is presentation. If we have any comments, we can provide comments, but no opinions about what the proposal, is or looks like and things like that, so. Kim, do you want to
Yeah, I
add?
just want to clarify that last comment. Because it is a pre-application, it is non-binding on the possible applicant. It's also non-binding, your comments are non-binding on the commission's part. You cannot state that, should this application come in, I'm in favor of it, I'm against it. But they're obviously here because they do want to have some feedback provided as far as suggestions. You can talk about building locations, parking, architectural appearance, suggestions possibly, but keep in mind, it's non-binding on your part, non-binding on their part, and they may or may not be a possible applicant in the future. But I would just ask that commission members refrain from stating, you come in, we're going to approve it, if you come in, we're going to deny it. I mean, there's no judging that way, okay? That's what I would ask. And keep in mind, it is not a public hearing. Should the possible applicant come forward in the future, then there will be a public hearing. But we don't know what's going to happen, so.
Thank you,
Thank
Kim.
you.
Right. Have it right here.
We will.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's on the other side.
We have it on the monitors, yeah.
Oh, you have it on the monitor. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, thank you very much for your time this evening. We are presenting today a approximate 200 mixed-use property, mixed-use development in the center of Rocky Hill, known as the Village of Rocky Hill. That's where I'll start by saying that that name is a placeholder. If the town wants to go in another direction with the name, then we're certainly amenable to that. Just make sure I have. Here we go. So the agenda for this evening is to introduce the Belfonte team, some of our other projects, proposed mixed-use community, the Village of Rocky Hill, zoning analysis, and then a conclusion. My name is Michael Belfonte. I'm the founder of the company. I founded it over 30 years ago. We are a full-service real estate investment and development company with an affiliated property management company called MCR Property Management, Inc. The M stands for Michael, in case you're curious. The C is Constance, who is my mother, and the R is Richard. So that's the MCR. We've done over $2 billion worth of transactions in 30-plus years. We currently own about 3,000 apartment units in Connecticut and Massachusetts, and about 600,000 square feet of retail and some industrial and warehouse. We've also been in 14 different states and internationally through my 30 years and through the company's 30-year history. We have joint ventured with institutional partners such as Heinz International, which is a worldwide company, and you might have heard of the Carlyle Group as well. Currently, we have 120 employees, and we invite you to visit our website, www.belfonte.com. So as I said, I'm the founder of the company. List my education here. We don't have to go into each thing. You have it in front of you. We look for value-added opportunities, places where people really want us to help. We improve all our properties. Our properties are maintained to the highest standard, always putting money back into the properties and making sure they look nice and clean and neat and are managed professionally. We've transacted over $2 billion worth of deals in the last 30-plus years. And we have a lot of philanthropic causes that we donate to. And it's encouraged that our employees actually give back to the community in various charities and giving their time and treasures back to the community and back to organizations. And I'm very proud of that because it's something that I personally do. So Mark Forlenza is right over here. He's our Director of Construction and Development. I can't brag enough about Mark. Mark came aboard with us about 3 years ago, or maybe it's 4 now, I think. And Mark has 25 years of experience in residential land development and construction. He was a former principal at Spinnaker Residential. He was a former officer with Avalon Bay Communities, which is a public REIT, a publicly traded company. Mark is responsible for over $2.5 billion of residential construction, real estate, as well as across 35 communities. And we can look at Mark's education as well. Mark's one of the top residential development guys, I would say, in the country. SLR is our engineering team, and we have our representative, John Malone, right here, who's going to speak about the zoning further on in the presentation. And John is a principal with SLR. Studio Architect specializes in multifamily construction. They're architects. They're out of Atlanta, Georgia, and have done hundreds and hundreds of apartment communities throughout the country. This is a development that's currently in construction in Cromwell, Connecticut. It's called the Landon, and you might remember the old Nike base at the top of the hill near Route 372. It was laying fallow for over 50 years, and we came in and basically bought the property and got it rezoned. And you can check the website out there or go visit us at that property. We have about almost 70 units leased already, and the construction is almost 80% complete. These are garden apartment homes, top in its class, and this is what we would kind of be looking for or looking to do in Rocky Hill. Not the same design, but certainly the same quality of construction. This is a project we're doing in Litchfield, Connecticut, called Hunter's Chase. And if you Google that, it's www.hunterschasect.com. There's about 100 units in the project. Where we have 10 units left in phase 1. Prices start at about $550,000. We usually are not condominium developers, but this particular deal was very attractive to us. And there's also a phase 2. And that'll hopefully start after we sell these 10 units, and that's another 20 units. But Litchfield is a very, very nice town, and we have here an image of one of the interiors. This is the development we're doing with Hines International on Revere Beach in Boston. It's a little north of Boston, actually. It's right on the beach. Revere Public Beach is actually the oldest public beach in the country. We're very excited about this. We're breaking ground on this project along with Hines in October of this year. This is the press release from Hines and Belfonte. If you could Google it as well, but came out a little wide here. But you could, if you Google Hines Belfonte, you can read that article as well. This is a development in Northford, Connecticut. It's called the Pines. This will be about 120 units. If you see the building next to it, that's the Northford Ice Pavilion. We also developed that. It's a 3-surface ice skating facility. It's the largest ice skating facility under one roof in the state of Connecticut. We have many youth hockey programs, high schools, et cetera, that skate there. And if you get a chance and you're driving through North Haven and you want to, North Branford rather, and you want a public skate, it's the place to go. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to John Malone, which is the overview of the site, how it evolved, how we got involved, and how we want to try to make it synergistic with the town and with the center and with the green right across the street, and make this a real showpiece for the community and for everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. My name's John Milone. I'm a professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, former president of Milone and McBroom. We recently merged into an international firm known as SLR, where I serve as the sector lead for built environment for the United States. I have a long relationship with both Mark and Michael, done many projects together. Very proud to be here representing them this evening. I can attest to the quality of their work and the sincerity of their desire to do really good work in community, so I'm happy to be here on their behalf. You're all familiar with this site. We know it's a very important site to the community, and we know you can't opine as to whether you like our proposal or not this evening, but we're really looking for insight from you as to what you see as important to you. We know this is so important to the community. We've kind of come up with a concept that we think makes sense, but we want to hear as much as we can, so that as we come forward, it represents something that's consistent with the vision of the community as a whole. So you all know the site is the former Ames department store site. It's been vacant for about 18 years, as you know. It's a 12-acre parcel. There's about a 250,000 square foot building on there. The site originally accommodated about 900 parking spaces. And it's obviously right within the center of the community, and as the entire center of the community, close proximity to Interstate 91. It's currently zoned a town center, TC, and it's a mixed-use village district. You're probably aware that the State Bond Commission has awarded about $500,000 to promote development of this site, and we're excited about that, obviously, and the town is seeking brownfield redevelopment funding for the site as well. There's a large building on here. There's some issues relative to the demolition of the building that need to be addressed. They're fairly expensive. And the site has all the utilities available to it: water, gas, sanitary sewer along Main Street. We've already had service letters from MDC that it's capable of supporting the development as we envision it right now, so that's important to us. And there's an existing traffic signal right in front of the site opposite Garden Street, which provides a real value to a development such as this. See if I hit the right button here, Michael. So here's just a visual of the location of the site. You're all familiar with it. I'm not going to tell you anything that you're not familiar with, but it's in a transitional neighborhood. The center of the town is just to the north of the property. There's multifamily housing just immediately to the north and to the east. There's some single-family housing to the south. We know there's a nice park to the southwest of the property, which abuts the cemetery, and there's some commercial uses across the street: a restaurant, CVS, a couple of other uses. As you go further to the north, Silverstein Highway begins there, and you begin a very strong kind of commercial corridor there. And as you go to the east of the site, you can work your way down to the Connecticut River. So it's a great location, and I'm not going to, again, tell you things that you're not familiar with. Here's just an overview of the site. If you see it from the air, you've driven by it, you might not see it this way, but there's that large building right in the center of the property. It's almost fully paved around the center. It does have access to Pratt Street to the south. It has two locations where it has access to Main Street and Dividend Road, and you can see the location of the existing traffic light, which is kind of just south of the main frontage of the site along Main Street. So it's in a very nice location. This is just a picture of the building as you go by. It's blighted. It's been, as we said, been vacant for almost 2 decades. But it is located in the heart of Rocky Hill, across from Down Green, and in the immediate vicinity of the Historic District, and of course, close to the riverfront, as I've said before. So we want to do something that really is consistent with your plan and your vision for the community. We're going to get into the site plan in a second. I'm going to start with a little bit of just the architecture, and then you'll see how this fits to the site plan. This is one of the buildings that would sit along Main Street. This would be on the south end of the site. This is more or less opposite the park, the Triangle Park, the town park that sits across. We envision a building here that we're going to have no parking along Main Street at all. All these buildings are going to be along Main Street are going to be situated so they're focused on Main Street. In this instance, we set the building back so we can create a plaza area, about 10,000 square foot plaza area that complements the park across the street, provides more of an active location for residents, but it's a public area, an area that the public can enjoy. We'll have commercial in this building on the lower level, and the commercial will have parking behind it, so again, it'll be easily accessible from Main Street, but there'll be no parking on Main Street. And people will be able to use the backside of this commercial, which will really be their front, as you pass down the road, for commercial use and for more active use than the park, and you'll of course have the passive park across the street. So we think this is an opportunity we want to take advantage of. You see the kind of a sense of the architecture we have in mind here, but again, this is something we want to work with the commission on. We're very open to architecture that meets the vision of your vision, and it complements the architecture of Rocky Hill and what you'd like to see at the site. This is looking towards the site from a little bit further north, kind of would be looking in the southeast towards the site. There we envision a couple of residential buildings that would sit right on the roadway. They'd be in close proximity to the sidewalk. They would be provide access to these units directly on the sidewalk, and again, parking is always behind them. So as you drive down Main Street, you would see no parking. We'll show you a couple of spots where we kind of have a connection to Main Street, both pedestrian and vehicular. But this is just to give you a sense before I show you the site plan of what we see the architecture looking like and the character that we're trying to accomplish here. We believe that this character recognizes some good placemaking principles. In this particular slide, we talk about the density of the property, and we will have 10% workforce housing to meet both your criteria and state and local mandates. So here's the site plan as we envision it right now. Main Street is to the bottom of the sheet. North is to the left, and the Triangle Park of the town green is to the lower right-hand corner of the southwest of the property. So as you start from the north, working south from the center of town, and you go along Main Street, the first thing you're going to hit is a pocket park. This will be the first public space that you hit, and this is a space that kind of connects the pedestrian nature of the downtown.
You could use this too for the mouse to show.
Oh, you got a mouse to show it? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. I didn't realize that, Michael. Thank you. So there's this little pocket park that we have over here. A lot of opportunity in terms of design for that. So that could be a very interesting and exciting place. And that's something where people who are walking here from the center of town will have their first spot to relax, rest, kind of have a reprieve from Main Street because our buildings are going to be close to the street. Then we'll work our way down. Oops, I did something wrong here. Okay, I don't know if I don't see the mouse. Oh, there's the mouse, okay. We'll work our way down. We'll have buildings right along the street, two fairly similar buildings, which will front on Main Street, again, parking to the rear. And we won't have vehicular access yet, but we will have a pedestrian access between these two buildings. That'll be a tree-lined pedestrian access that will provide people pedestrian access into the site. I guess we do want this to be a pedestrian-friendly site, so people within the site can not only come out here via the vehicular driveway that's further to the south, but they can walk out and work their way downtown right along the street frontage. And anyone walking along here could find a very nice, convenient pedestrian access without vehicular intrusion into the property to enjoy the property from a pedestrian standpoint. As you get into the center of the site, you can see there's a lot of opportunities to walk, to use green space, et cetera, but we're focusing on the street at this time. As you go further to the south, you hit the existing signal, and this is where our main access to the property would occur. We would have a boulevard access, tree-lined driveway into the property, and to the right of that would be the plaza that I spoke to earlier in the presentation, opposite the town park, the town green on the opposite side of the street. And then the first commercial building that sits here that would have parking behind it that would support that again. So we have a commercial building that we believe is viable, and but yet doesn't have any parking on Main Street, which we think is important. Then the buildings are clustered around a central core, around some tree-lined roadways, and we have a series of different types of buildings, including carriage homes, townhomes, which would sit in the eastern portion of the site. And if you can see this, we've left a townhome, a traditional two-story structure there with a large green space behind it to try and provide some additional buffer to the residential development that exists to the east, the apartments to the east. And then a series of smaller buildings within the site, which would support 200 apartment units. And then we have the commercial space here and another commercial building to the south, so they're near each other, and we end up with about 20,000 square feet of commercial space within the development, which we think is a number that could be sustained well within the community here, and could be a vibrant commercial space, as opposed to sometimes if you offer too much commercial space at the wrong location, they end up to be vacant, and it doesn't provide value. We think this is a nice mix between the density of the apartments, which we want somewhat high because we really want to bring a lot of vibrancy to downtown, and then the right mix of commercial and residential. We have a lot of garages here envisioned in this space, plenty of parking, and of course, with the site being almost entirely paved in the past, we have a tremendous increase in green space. It's if on a percentage basis, it's 570%, but you can see there's a lot of green space, a lot of attention to landscaping, et cetera here. So that's the intent, the vision of the site plan, and the proposal. It is consistent, we think, with the plan of conservation and development to support a town center, and we believe it supports many of the concepts described in the plan in terms of sense of place, walkability, mixed use and diversity, increased density, focus on pedestrians, and of course, the location, of course, is a great transit connection, so we don't create that, but we try and accommodate that with the design. We believe it's a walkable, bike-friendly community itself. We know there's not a lot of bike paths in the area, but this development itself is bike-friendly, and the ability to get from sidewalk to other parts, work our way down to the river, to the town center, et cetera. It's all very, very walkable and very bikeable. So we're overjoyed with this location. We tried to come up with a design that promotes that use. And with zoning, we're very consistent with zoning. We know you have a lot of flexibility if it's a plan that meets your vision and desires. I think our only area that we'd look to modify would be the front yard setback, which is 35 feet. We want to bring these buildings as much as possible close to the street, so we'd look to the commission to modify that. But other than that, I think we'll meet or exceed most of your underlying zoning requirements. And I believe that that completes kind of an overview of what we're doing. We obviously want to get as much feedback as we can, but in conclusion, we feel the development is consistent with the vibrant town center, and it's recognizing good placemaking principles. Obviously, there'll be a tremendous increase to your grand list. It'll be a catalyst for additional investment along Silestein Highway because we bring a lot of residents into the community. It provides new housing and mixed-use opportunities for Rocky Hill, and while we believe maintaining a small-town feel. The residents in the new community will obviously be supporting the rest of the community because we're right in the heart of the community, both in terms of goods and businesses. We've tried to provide increased green space that's available not only to the community itself, but also to the community at large, to the Rocky Hill residents, by having open space right on the street. And we believe it offers a sense of space and a healthy life, style choice for people if they wish to live here. And the initial phase will begin to connect the town center to Connecticut River. And by the way, I would like to say also that we intend to phase the project with our initial work along Main Street as a first phase. So our first phase would include some residential development, but our commercial building with that large plaza out in front of it right at the beginning, because we want to create a nice frontage here as we begin to develop the property from the face to the rear. So that concludes my presentation. I know Mark Forlenza, I don't know if you want to add anything, Mark, or wait for questions. So I know Mark might want to answer some questions. It's his expertise, so.
All right, thank you.
Michael, do you want to?
Commissioner,
Okay.
Commissioner Gligo? Comments?
Good.
No. Commissioner,
Good evening, gentlemen. I have a few questions for you and a few for town staff, if I may. One, I noticed that there was only one curb cut, and we have 3-story buildings throughout the property. I know we have 2 ladder trucks in town. I would like to get a statement from the fire chief that one curb cut, 2 trucks, is that enough?
Let me respond to that first. I might have gone by that too fast. There's the one major curb cut but there's 2 other curb cuts onto the property.
Okay.
One on the street to the south, Platt, I think it is, or Pratt, and then there's a second one that exists just to the south. So there are 3 ways to get into the property. We think most of the traffic will utilize the signal, but emergency vehicles won't be limited to that one location.
I'd still like to get, I would think it would be appropriate to get something from fire chief.
Typically, what we do, this is not an application.
It's a question worth asking.
Yeah, when and if there was an application submitted, we farm all plans out to police and fire.
Guy, the other curb cut is here. If you look at your monitor, coming in this way.
Right.
So there's 2, actually.
Again, I'm not a fireman.
Okay,
I
no,
don't drive the ladder
neither
trucks,
am
but
I.
I just don't know if one can get around that corner. I'd like to know if the chief can just concur with that. Just, that's all, just to help you guys out when you get down the road. Another question I had, again, for town staff, and I guess a little bit for you guys. Many years ago, I served on the council, and we had some challenges with density issues, overcrowding, and some of the illegal overcrowding in some of the other areas of town. And my first question was for staff, I would like to know if that has been rectified, or if has anything been done about that. And my second question is for you: how would you manage that issue once the development gets complete?
By overcrowding, you mean in each unit?
Yeah.
Well, our leases are very strict, and you're only allowed to have so many people per bedroom. So, if they are not in compliance, then they're served honestly a notice to quit, and they're asked to vacate. And if they don't vacate, then obviously we use legal methods to do so. So we don't expect any overcrowding at all. Doesn't happen in any of our other properties.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
And if I may, for Commissioner DePoe, the town of Rocky Hill has a housing standard ordinance, of which one section does deal with overcrowding, and there's calculations. Every time there's a multifamily development, either built or people own more than 3 units, they have to register the units, and there is a fee for registration. It's a very minor fee. However, that develops the relationship between town staff who enforce that ordinance and the property owners. We have worked in a few instances when we receive complaints, because that's the only way we'll know. We don't typically go into people's units, but if we do receive complaints, we work with property managers and property owners to address overcrowding situations, and we have had on some circumstances had to deal with that with property owners. So,
Just wanted to make sure it's on the record and that they're aware of it. Regarding this property, I would just like to know, is this the only zoned property left in town that allows for high density without a special permit? The only property left in town under this zoning?
in the town center district, obviously you can have redevelopment, and there's some properties that are certainly suitable for that. But you could have this in any of the town center properties. They can combine properties, people can combine properties, or people can take existing properties and repurpose buildings, take down buildings, and raise new structures.
Okay. Okay. The question is for the developer. I saw on the plans you have 10,000 square feet for retail, 10,000 for is it commercial or office, right?
Correct.
Would you be amenable to expanding the retail a bit on the Silestine Highway side to further the community and retail aspect of the property down the road as a consideration?
The balance of the 200 units and the 20,000 square feet of retail we think is ideal. What we don't want to do is kind of put too much commercial in and not be able to lease it. So I think it's difficult. That's why we made that first building retail and then the second building office. We see like a medical office use there, actually, not retail. And that would be, as John said, one of the first buildings that we build would be that first building. So it would be difficult to do. I mean, the numbers are really, really tight. I mean, this stuff isn't easy to do, as you can imagine, and it has to function economically in order to do it. So that was the balance that we came up with that works for us.
I think a counter argument could be made that if you expanded the retail side and it didn't make it, you could always convert it back to residential. Versus if you went to residential, you're always going to have that, and there's no chance for it to ever become retail. So just something to think about. On the street side only, considering that for a short-term purpose, and for short-term purposes, if it works and you get a big demand, great, everybody wins. If you don't, you can always convert
I think
back
it's
to
almost a loss leader for us. I wish that wasn't the case, because if it was so good, I think that we would do 20,000 feet. But we're very suspect of that retail piece. We're hoping we lease it quickly and lease it to terrific, tenants, but if we don't, at least, we're still in good shape. The other thing about the retail is it requires a lot of parking, more than the residential does. And that takes from the site and it takes from the density. So, yeah, please.
Just something quickly. Mark Forlenza, I was introduced prior. There is a different type of construction when you build retail under residential. So a couple of these buildings are not standard wood frame buildings. So how two of these buildings are built, and especially the one with the retail under it, is you build a structural slab above so you can have larger spans. So once the cost of that construction is probably double sort of a residence. And so once you kind of commit to that retail, you really do need to have the retail there. And with the, typical wood frame building, as you see in your house, you have bearing walls all over the place, which you really can't move. So, you're kind of stuck with the building frame, whether it's, commercial below and residential above, or just all residential. You're kind of stuck with that use. Retrofitting it is not, is not really the best way to approach it. Just some comment on the cost and the development.
I had one more question. What is the distance from the street to, say, Building 5 and Building 1? I was trying to get that from the setback, but I can't tell what's the front, what's the side, what's the back.
It's what we tried to do is to move all the residential buildings closer to the street to sort of energize that streetscape. So it's about, we're looking at it here, it's about 15 feet. If you go back to the architecture, what we tried to do is sort of mimic sort of a townhouse feel on that street and have individual walkways to each of the apartment homes, so people come out of their homes and they can, not only can they use sort of the green areas to access the street and to, to shop on, on Main Street, but they also come straight out of their doors. And again, we can change the facade any way you guys feel it's appropriate, but that sort of was the thinking. I just also want to add about the density downtown. As Michael and John mentioned, we currently have, about the same size development up in Cromwell. It's 160 apartment homes, without retail. The average household income in Cromwell right now is about $120,000 a household, which in general, when you do the math, and people spend about 30% of their income as discretionary income, you're talking about $8 to $10 million of disposable income that will be available to sort of the retailers, on Main Street. So that's part of the reason why I think, downtown residential is what a lot of towns and cities are doing, across the state and frankly across the country. This mix of 20% retail, over 10%, sort of $20,000 of retail office, at a total of 220, about 10%, that really is a higher proportion than what we've done in some of the deals that you saw, either Revere or some of the higher-rise deals that I've done in downtown New Haven. Typically we're at 10,000 on a 300 units. So we are sort of stretching here to get that retail mix that we think is viable. But again, the pedestrians, the residents and the pedestrians will be supporting the local retail in the area, and that's why the high density residential is so critical to a town center. So, I know you didn't ask that question. I figured.
No, I actually appreciate your thought process on that. The only other one quick question I have has to do with, would you be amenable to moving the corporate or office to the front versus the back versus the other street?
Where exactly we talking about?
Site plan.
What?
It's not a site plan. It's a concept.
I got it.
We could. I tell you this. We could look at it. There were very specific site planning reasons why we put it there, but we can absolutely look at trying to relocate it in a different location. Where it is now, again, the buildings were put on the site plan, again, to energize the street and to have that plaza. If we were to put the office, I guess, on the street, you kind of lose some of that. In addition, sort of the parking works better over here because there's almost 100% synergy between office and residential, so you kind of can share those spaces. So there were reasons why it was kind of put there. This also could become sort of a workstations for the residents that choose to work out of their home right now. So there was some thinking behind it, but we can look at it.
No more questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Israeli.
Looking at this plan, it seems like you guys tried to integrate the look of the Silas Dean into this plan with the bricks and everything else. Was that the case? Did you guys look at Kim, forgive me the name of it, the Silas Dean there was like a concept,
Celestine investment plan.
whatever it was, which was the design of, the look of how they went down the Celestine.
Streetscape.
Would that,
Yeah, what happened, typically before we do this architecture, we sort of do a visioning study, which we didn't show here tonight, but we sort of look at some buildings that we kind of like. We take photos of the area buildings, and then we kind of come up with a visioning board, and then try to incorporate some of those architectural elements into the architecture. And again, the architecture we showed you is very preliminary. It's not detailed. So yes, we did. That was one of the buildings that we kind of looked at. We also looked at the colors of the brick. We looked at the brownstones up in Boston, sort of the brick down in D.C. We looked at this building, which was more of an orange look, and we came up with that sort of color palette that you see. So yeah, we did look at it,
which was it's, you guys said in your presentation that you would be amenable to the naming or whatever, and I would personally love to see a historical component, like a naming, work with our Great Historical Society or something to like name this site, to make it mean something to the town. Like we have other things in town that have like street names that are historical. We have parks named after people. We have developments named after people. So if you have any inkling on naming, and if you're not married to something, it'd be nice to have like a name that is pertinent to the town. Like, we have the Cumberland, which is the ferry. We have the Foundry, which is the Foundry. Those type of things.
So with our Cromwell project, it's 8 acres, 8.7 acres on the highest plateau in Cromwell. And we hired a branding company to actually do a study, and then we got 10 names, and then we kept whittling it down. And certainly the town's input is welcome, but the name Landon means high plateau. It's an Old English and Scottish name. So we thought that was kind of clever because it's a plateau in Cromwell on the top. So a lot of thought went into the Landon because everyone's like, what's the Landon? Well, it really does mean something. So we would be hiring a branding company for this.
Don't call it Ames.
No Ames, no Ames. So with every project, we hire a branding company, and they help us with the collateral and the colors and everything.
We have a great historical society, so
yeah, so
hopefully
you guys can have
talk to them about-
input with that for sure.
And then my last point is that northern border that abuts the condos there, it's always been tough. And just be aware when you do that northern border, if you can either dress up a fancy fence or do something on that northern border to help those condos that are right there. I know you put a buffer in and for building 1, 2, 3, and garage 1. But it seems like that fence line along the northern border has always been tough, and it's been poorly maintained and 18 years of.
Here?
To the north, right there.
Yeah, so, we could certainly,
Just-
vegetation is always the best.
Yeah, I'm
you
not
know.
saying what you need to do there, I'm just saying, just be attentive to that, because that is your smallest buffer between residents. In the back, you have more of a buffer, but along that northern line, it's tough.
We were also
Just if you
thinking
could-
of
if you
some
could take-
possible garages there too, which, again, protects the
Yeah. A
view.
couple of proposals before this, they were, where you had buildings, they had huge 5-story buildings, and it created a cavern, and those poor residents were, it was a horrible design. So this looks much better because you have so much more buffer there. But just be aware of that northern border, because it's tough on that property.
Thank you.
And then, I'm sorry, just one last question. Is the grade, are you envisioning a grade change? And so the rear buildings, like 3, 4, 8, those are like 3 or 4-story towers, non-elevator towers? Or are you envisioning?
No, there's no elevators except possibly for building 10. And we'll be adapting to the grades.
Okay, so you're not changing the grade, you're just going to adapt to the grade. So
I think I better defer to John on that.
I'm not saying you have to commit to it, I'm just wondering.
We plan on it, but it does slope north.
Yeah, but you don't intend to compensate by making bigger buildings in the back?
No.
That's my question.
And if you look at the perimeter here, there are no tall buildings. You know, these are all low, and the townhouses are only 2-story, and right around here is no buildings. So the only taller buildings are on Main Street.
We tried to put the smaller buildings sort of as a visual break, so the residents in the condo communities along the side you would see the smaller buildings, and they wouldn't kind of see the larger buildings that are on the interior side. So we kind of put those buildings in strategic locations. I don't know, it may not seem that way in the plan, but
No, it does.
that's what we were
Yeah, it does.
intending to
You
do.
can see I have nothing further right now.
Commissioner?
Well, first of all, with the name, don't use the ferry's name because we already have a Cumberland Farms in town. Just lighten this thing up. Just for a future consideration for a formal application, I see you've got 122-bedroom apartments, and there might be a lot of sensitivity to loading our school system. So you may want to keep that in mind when you're...
So we have studies done that actually show the school-age kids that come into a new community like this, which is kind of renter by choice.
Yeah.
And it's anywhere between, 2% to 7% at the most. And then when you take a school-age kid and then you look at all the fixed costs that you have in the town anyway, because you have one principal, you're heating the school, you're plowing the driveways. We'll have a study that shows that this will have very little impact.
Okay.
And we have no 3-bedrooms. So we're not encouraging, kids.
That's
But
a
that doesn't mean
sensitive
kids
issue.
can't live there, obviously. But you're not going to get a lot of them. Most of the projects that we've seen are, like I said, 3 to 2.5 to maybe, 9 kids on 150 units. So we don't expect a lot of kids here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just a sensitive issue in town, has been over the last several years.
I think you guys did your own study too,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. So.
Anything else I might comment on would be once we have a formal application.
Can you give us a hint?
No, then we get into all the details that we're not really supposed to get into.
Okay.
But
it would be easier for us.
I know. The whole idea, I think, is going to be well received.
Thank you.
It's similar to this.
If you have some time to go and check out Cromwell, it's literally 10 minutes from here. It's called a Landon, and you can go shop it. It's called shopping it. You could pose as a renter. I won't care. And you could have them show you around. And I think you'll be very, very impressed.
Okay.
I mean, just as a point of reference, just before I left, I stopped by Cromwell, and the 1-bedroom rents sort of start at $1,900, and they move to about $2,050, and then the 2-bedroom rents start at about $2,200, and they end at about $2,800 a month. So that's the kind of, and we're very proximate to, the towns are very close. And we actually think this site is a lot nicer than the Cromwell site for lots of reasons. So
Because of the downtown mostly.
For lots of reasons. So, So we would expect the range of rents to be similar. I know everybody's curious about that, so that's why I figured
And we've satisfied the affordability requirement for the state and the town as well.
Just another question or two. You're mentioning that you have carriage houses and you mentioned townhouses. Will those be rentals or will those be?
All rentals, yes.
Everything is rental?
Everything's rental. The carriage house concept is the unit would be over a garage. So someone would be able to pull into their garage and there'd be a stairway, like exterior, interior stairway, and go right upstairs.
Okay.
So it'd be kind of, neat. And it's a different variety. Like at Cromwell also, we had many different types of units, and it makes for a better community because it's not a cookie cutter buildings like there are some that you're aware of. This will have much more character, and people will have many more choices to live in a carriage house or live in a building with individual entries or live in the retail building or et cetera.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting.
Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you. Commissioner Robbins?
Without saying too much, I just remind you to pay close attention to section 8-C-5 for additional village district considerations. And just some of the key points in there where the exterior structures or sites shall be consistent with the distinctive characteristics of the district identified in the Rock Hill Plan of Conservation and Development. You want to pay close attention to that. You want to make sure that the proposed buildings are harmoniously related to their surroundings, the terrain in the district, and to the use scale and architecture of the existing buildings in the district that have a functional or visional relationship to the proposed building. All spaces and structures and related site improvements visible from public roadways shall be designed to be compatible with the elements of the area of the village district in and around the proposed building or modification. And again, it just goes on, the color, size, scope, height, proportion of openings, building materials, and so on. What I would just suggest is that, pay special attention to what's going on right along Main Street. This is really not the Celestine Highway anymore. This is Main Street. You have an ancient cemetery on the south side of the property. You have a historic church on the north side of the property, and you have a number of historic buildings around it. If you believe your architecture aligns with that, but you want to pay close attention to that, because you want that walkable space along Main Street to represent the face of the surrounding community. So I would say put your focus up front along Main Street about what that looks like.
As Mark said, we took different palettes from around Main Street and coming right down to Town Hall here, and tried to kind of blend those palettes in and tried to come up with a design. These are actually pitched roofs. They look flat, but they're pitched actually. But we didn't think pitched roofs, the appearance of pitched roofs, would look as nice as this townhouse-esque kind of buildings here. And one other thing I just want to, if I could just show you. Oh, I gotta go back 1 second. Yeah, so if you look here, these will be like townhouse, these L buildings. This is Main Street, these 3 buildings. So these are residential. And then again, this is our commercial building with retail, with a park here and a big plaza so people could eat. And we've envisioned a cafe, maybe a high-end wine shop or something to that effect. A coffee place, a nice coffee place to have coffee or tea out here. And so the idea of these 3 buildings is to make them look like Main Street, not like Celestine. So all comments are welcome in terms of, materials, or if you see another idea, or, tell us, and we'll, try to see if we can make it work. But a lot of thought went into this to try to be, very careful to make it look like a village and a downtown, not like a commercial property.
And just a question of curiosity, in the retail units, assuming some of them are restaurants or clothing stores or whatever they may be, there's no parking. So where would the people from town who might want to go there park?
No, well, I think you're going to have plenty of parking here behind, because, apartments have a different kind of hourly use, if you will, as well. When the stores are closed, the people are back, and when the stores open, the people are gone. So this was calculated by SLR, and we feel we have plenty of parking for the 10,000 square feet of retail, the 10,000 square feet of commercial, as well as the apartments. We do not see a parking problem here.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Brescia?
Did you consider any accessible housing, handicap housing on lower levels and
There's
ramps?
a state code that we have to comply to. Do you
Where
know
would
the
those be
what the
located?
number is?
They're on the, there's a certain percentage of, on the first floor, I got it right here. There's a certain percentage of apartment homes that are both accessible and adaptable, with the lower the height of the countertops, and removable panels, and I forgot, it may be 5%, I don't know about the exact percentage, but by state code and law, we always provide that.
Right.
There's also probably a number of,
Are those closer to the front for accessibility?
it would be probably closer to the parking, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. What we try to do is we try to provide them in each different building at different locations. So if somebody wants to live in the front of the site, they can live in the front of the site. If somebody wants to live to the rear, they can live to the rear. So, they're kind of spread out proportionally amongst all the buildings.
And you have enough space for like vans with wheelchair accessible?
Yes.
Bigger vans.
And there's a number of handicap spaces and all that stuff, yes.
In terms of walkability, I'm just looking, is the sidewalk does it go all the way around? Does it go down Pratt Street?
Does it go down? I don't think so, actually. I don't think so.
Was there a thought process with that?
I mean, we can, if you
I
want
mean,
to.
I'm just thinking about walkability. We want to walk all around it.
Yeah, we could look at that, sure.
You're going to have people that want to walk, and bikers. There might be
Sure.
some bike people somewhere. I didn't see any bike racks, so maybe that's something to think about.
They're not,
Put
yeah,
some
they're not
bike
shown on the
racks.
plan. We will
Yeah, just-
absolutely provide them.
Just some bike
We were thinking of a few benches and bike racks.
benches are great too, so
Yeah.
people can sit down. Yep.
We usually, what we did at Cromwell was we actually had bike storage in some of the garages, so people can actually lock their bikes up, and then we also have, the availability of bike racks outside. So we actually provide both, so.
Good. Any pet-friendly area?
It is a pet-friendly property.
Okay.
So-
Are there designated
No,
areas?
not at all.
Everyone loves their pets.
Yeah. And now there's DNA testing, by the way. So any perpetrators get caught because we have their DNA on file at the office.
Oh.
We haven't shown a space here, but in Cromwell, there's a dog park, there's a dog wash, next, in one of the garages for pets. We haven't shown one here, but we have incorporated that in our plans. So no longer do people do pet buildings. All pets are welcome.
Now, I saw that you had a pool. Any other recreational kinds of activities that you're thinking about?
As you see there, and again, this is just very conceptual.
Yep.
The pool itself will probably not end up being square. But yeah, in that location, we'll have a similar amenity area like we have in Cromwell, which fire pits, whatever that game is called, where you throw the bags in the whole cornhole area. So we have adult play areas, we have children play areas, we have amenities, fire pits for both passive and active recreation.
We have a full gym.
Yeah, then
Full gym, yeah.
in the clubhouse itself. That's talking about outside. That you're not seeing the detail here just because it's a concept, but that will eventually be incorporated. But then, as Michael said, inside we'll have a large gym, larger than the one we have in Cromwell, because we have an opportunity to have an individual building here, all glassed, overlooking the pool. Great room, wine racks, the whole thing.
Yeah. And do you have any time frames for those phases in? Because you said you'd start at one residential or commercial building first?
Yeah, this would probably take about, we're calling it phasing, but it really won't be phased. We'll probably build this at one time in 20 months. So when we talked about phasing, I think what someone was trying to address was what is the sequence of buildings and when you're going to build what. We would probably build, the project all at once, but the initial buildings would probably be the ones on the street and then the leasing office, because we need some place to lease. With the office, we probably want to wait for a tenant of some sort before we built that building, because some of these buildings are built to suit. So that might be last. But it's not phasing, it's more sequencing.
Okay. And I would say, it seems like there's a lot of walkways, so I would just give some thought to stable walkways. A lot of people, a lot of trip hazards, especially with cobblestone. I don't know if you have any cobblestone or any pavers you're using, but just a lot of thought to flat level surfaces for easy walking, wheelchair accessibility, bikes, whatever. But a lot of times people can catch a foot or a toe on some sidewalks.
All the walkways are concrete. There might be a little facade in front of the carriage houses with some pavers, just to make it look like old Englishy, for lack of a better word.
We'd like to mimic some of the pavers you have here in this building. I mean, you have a combination of those pavers that sort of break up the pipe. I mean, that's what kind of we were thinking over here, in addition to what Michael was saying, just to give it some sex appeal.
And just lastly, and you're gonna, I'm sure, take a look at enough fire suppression areas where there's standpipes or hydrants,
Oh,
right?
it's fully, the buildings will be fully sprinklered, state of the art, monitored back to the fire department, so when the buildings will be designated by building number, and as soon as the fire department comes, which is rare, they'll know exactly where to go, so.
Perfect. That's not one way, right? There's two ways?
That's two ways.
The
'cause
streets
it's
are
out of
two
light.
ways? Okay.
Okay,
Oh.
good? Yeah, I'm waiting. I was like,
Oh, sorry, I'm good.
I have a question for Michael. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Isn't this site much better than Litchfield? That's fine.
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
The answer is yes, it is.
I think some of the questions you asked, and on the sidewalk, as you can see, our downtown are 5 roads, and that intersection has been improved by the town. And the sidewalks, I believe we have pavers, right, going all the way down. So that's something, if you can continue on this side and see if that matches, I think that would be, something good.
You can also do a design, where it's concrete, but then it's broken up, every 6 feet with maybe a few pavers, something like that to carry the theme. But you probably don't want pavers along Main Street if people are walking and people are riding bikes. I think you want something a little more stable. But you could certainly incorporate the design or do the concrete and then the pavers on the side, something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Sodastine streetscape
Yeah.
that we have?
Right.
Yeah.
So, Matt,
We really want everybody's input. I mean, genuinely. So.
And then, I don't know if you have given thoughts on signage of the commercial properties or the storefronts, things like that, like on the top. So maybe something, maybe it's historic or something.
It would be
like-
very low key, that's for sure. I mean, we're not having neon,
Right.
flashing lights. So it's probably against your design team anyway, but no, it'll be very tastefully done.
I see some balconies and stuff, so are you going to provide balconies and those things as well?
Yeah, there's 2 types of balconies. There's the larger balconies, and then there's something called the Juliet balcony, where you can kind of walk out a little. So the idea is that we wouldn't have people hanging off balconies on Main Street. So it would be, or barbecuing, as an example, which isn't allowed anyway. But, so it'd be a Juliet balcony where you could open the door and maybe walk 1 or 2 feet, poke your head out, see how the weather is, see if it's raining, and then go back in.
No, that was the concern, like making sure that we don't have things
There's
outside.
balconies on the back of the buildings, but not on Main Street.
Okay. Talk about phasing. How big would be this parklet? So say somebody wants to play music or something on weekends, can they, play that, and can people like stand around and things like that? How
Yeah,
would
we think it's about, between the common space, 15, 20,000 feet. If someone were to put a blanket down or, like a park bench we talked about, or, a bike rack, we could work with all of that. It's encouraged that, if people are walking by and they want to finish their water, they could, pull up a seat. It's no problem.
All right, I think I don't have anything else. Anyone would like to add anything?
Just had one question.
Sure.
Has there been any discussions with the adjacent property owners, mainly on the south side here, where they're kind of part of the development?
That's my house.
We haven't, you know, I didn't want to, I wanted, I guess, we can talk to anybody.
I
But
just
no,
wasn't
we
sure.
didn't reach out to anybody. We didn't even reach out to the engineers here. I think everyone's going to be pretty pleased, you know, that there's now a nice facility, nice community. I mean, you know, Mark mentioned the amount of, median income that's going to be in each household here. And these are going to be, really, really good people. And I think these homes that surround this, I think that the property values are going to go up, not down.
Right, no, Kim mentioned combining properties as one of the items in the district, so I was just wondering if that was even discussed.
We have not.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I just ask you, are those flat roofs, or do they have some sort of pitch to them?
No, they're pitched.
Because we live in New England, where you have a
Yeah.
flat roof, you're out of
All
luck.
the roofs are pitched.
Okay, okay.
It's an optical illusion.
Because I'm thinking it's really nice, but however, I
Nope, they're pitched.
It's a very low pitched roof. It makes it look on the street as if they're flat roofs, but they're actually not.
Just one, any utilities or anything like that, that would be, that you can see from outside or from any, nothing, all underground and all that.
And residents also pay, their own utilities here. So,
All right. Any?
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you
coming. It
very,
was,
very much, everybody. I really appreciate your time on behalf of me and my team. And again, I invite you to visit our website. Go check out Litchfield. We'll give you a deal. And they're beautiful units, by the way. And check out the Landon, though. It's literally 10 minutes from here.
Yep.
So if you want to go see it, we welcome you to go take a look.
I can use your name, right? I can
Anytime.
just
Anytime. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you. Good evening.
you.
Thank you.
go. All right. Moving on to item 5A, zoning enforcement update.
With all the rain we've been having, our primary enforcement has been blight and tall grass, to be honest with you. We've had some violations served by the marshal recently because people have vacated premises. So they have been served via marshal by both in a zoning matter and a health district violations as well. I would like to point out that in a concerted effort through several departments, zoning with respect to housing standards, health district, fire, we've contacted our town attorney and have met with the attorney for Concierge Apartments in Rocky Hill, and are working with the attorney now for Concierge for compliance on a variety of issues. We just met in person for the first time yesterday, as a matter of fact. So we're expecting a plan of correction soon.
Do they have crowding issue?
There were a few complaints we received for crowding, some of which have been addressed, some of which were not applicable based upon calculations.
Yeah, that thing 6, 7 years ago about there being gross overcrowding over there, that really was blown way out of proportion. It wasn't nearly as bad as people would like to have thought.
Correct.
All right, minor modifications?
Trying to think, I think there was one concerning Henkel, which is on, it was the former Loctite. They are redoing their ball fields and modifying their track that they have on their own property, and replacing their tennis courts. So that was a minor modification that was signed. Thank you for coming in.
Kim, a question about all the COVID stuff, as it pertains to like signs that, people advertising more because people couldn't go into businesses and outside seating and everything else. Has any of that stuff changed since, or are we carrying this over until the fall?
Well,
What's the
we
timeline
have,
of change there?
and some of that's in the documentation in your packet as well. We do have outdoor dining, for example. We've had a lot of requests to extend that, and the governor's orders did extend that to, I believe, March 31st of next year. But there's legislation that was passed that will allow outdoor dining as an accessory use to existing food establishments. So that's something that we have to look at. We have to look carefully at the regulation. I mean, we've been really overwhelmed with new things that this commission are going to have to do with respect to affordable housing, certain things as of right, creating different housing opportunities under the Fair Housing Act, outdoor dining regulations we have to put forth, recreational marijuana issues to address, whether they be producers or retail.
Do you foresee having to hire someone like a Planometrics again, or no?
Not necessarily, because a lot of this, we already kind of have a framework for it already, so, but I think we need to get on that. So at least you'll be introduced to it with some of the stuff this evening, so.
One of the other thing is what Commissioner Robbins had brought up about the compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. Correct character.
Yeah, one of the
Go on.
yeah, we can't, as far as the legislation that was passed, community character is no longer something that the commission can consider. It's not community character, it's site character.
Right.
It's the site characteristics, it's the soil types, it's the wetlands, it's the topography. It goes to the site character, not the community character, so not a broader based.
It reads differently in our zoning regs, though. It
That's-
talks about
so
we'll have to
compatibility with
change.
the surrounding.
That's correct, but that's one of the changes that has to
That will be
happen.
changed, yeah.
And all towns have it.
Yes.
And that's the way it was through the years. But now it's not. Now it can't be. So, and this just passed, so all the towns will be scrambling to, take our existing regulations, find the word, and replace it.
Do we have the legal brief on that?
We have,
Stuff to read.
Yeah.
we have a Holleran and Sage presentation for some of the changes, and I don't know if I printed out the Public Act that has all the changes in it. I can
think
have it
you
on my
did.
desk with all the changes. Public Act, I think it's 2129, I believe.
This has all the stuff.
That's part of it. Holleran and Sage put
Yeah.
together a wrap-up, and I actually printed out the Public Act to have the actual wording, but this is a presentation that they did in PowerPoint version. Talks about accessory apartments now are allowed as of right, which means you can either approve it with a zoning permit, which we do now, or with a site plan process. So it meets zoning. That's basically all you can do. It either meets zoning or it doesn't meet zoning. But it can be a detached unit. Doesn't always have to be an attached unit.
Tiny
It can
home.
now be a detached
We can
unit.
have a tiny home now in our backyard?
Yeah,
Tiny
tiny
houses,
home.
yep.
Tiny
Yep,
homes.
and that will take effect
Moving into it.
1/1 of next
Moving in.
year. Taking effect 1/1/23 is mandatory training for planning and zoning
That's
and
the big
ZBA members,
Big one.
which I think
Mandatory
is,
training.
is fantastic.
For
Some
everybody.
some of which has to be about affordable housing and housing opportunities. So, and there's a certain percentage there. Effective 1/1/23, the zoning enforcement officers have to be Casio certified. There's a process to go through for certification. Affordable housing plans, I'm working on the RFP now, finalizing that, and we'll be going out for that. So that will be wrapped up in the spring of next year, affordable housing plan for the town of Rocky Hill. One of the issues that I know Alan raised in an email to me concerning a project in town and the deadlines. There are mandatory extensions on approvals for projects if they were approved after 7/1/2011.
Oh, yeah.
Up until present day. Now, subdivisions, special permit site plans, and wetlands, wetlands has a different time frame. But now they have 14 years to complete the project with a possible 5-year additional extension. So there's a lot of things that
Got a
have
lot of reading
changed.
material to go through.
Yes, yes, there is. Cottage food industries is a new hot topic. We're dealing with a lot of requests for people preparing food out of their home. That goes through Department of Consumer Protection. We would consider it a home occupation, which is a zoning permit. However, you can't use, certain products can't be used because then the FDA has to get involved and that wouldn't be allowed. So you can bake, candies, certain types of cookies, but we're not using milk products, you're not baking cheesecakes, that type of thing, but you can do food out of your home now. And it's basically a delivery process. You don't, yeah.
I know.
So there's a lot of different things.
This business. This business. Cookies made of.
Kim, I had a couple questions. They
Sure.
mentioned in their presentation a fire pit, and I know that we talked about fire pits a couple meetings back. We were supposed to get confirmation if those were even legal. Any fire pit.
Any of the outdoor open burning,
Yes,
that would be
either.
dealt with through the fire marshal's office.
Right. Did we get any confirmation on that? That if they're legal or not legal?
I did not do that,
Okay.
so I apologize.
That's a fire
Yeah.
marshal issue, not a planning.
Okay.
I mean, I can certainly get that to you.
Can't have them, they said. Also,
I'll get that to you.
we did mention in previous meetings about signage. Has there been any violations noted?
Oh, about signs? We have
Excessive signage.
We have sign violations almost every week.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, lately, though, I gotta tell you, I mean, the majority of what we've been getting is tall grass complaints. We've seen and have had sign violations almost every week. I know with COVID going on, we were kind of lenient with respect to signs. Now we're seeing, as things are relaxing, we're seeing the signs staying in place. So that's a problem for us right now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Kim, just one last question, I'm sorry, for the PIC committee here, or the PIC update. I don't know if it was last meeting or the meeting before, we talked about how this commission can be more, have more power or more tools in their toolbox when it comes to sidewalks. We make sure that that's on that list of modifications that we have to do to our regulations to give this commission more power when it comes to sidewalk, just not in subdivisions, but any type of, and we can discuss what, but let's get it on the,
Well, we also have the issue of the town ordinance. There's a town ordinance that talks about sidewalk waivers, and it's with respect to subdivisions, which is a very specific type
yeah, I
of
think we need
process.
to broaden that.
And that
Either that or
needs-
memorialize what we all want to do, because, and so developers know that when they come to Rocky Hill, there's
Well, I
something in
think,
the
I
regulations
think
about
the
sidewalk.
ordinance needs revision as well.
If you can put it on that list of
In
ours.
order to have that go into the fund if it's a site plan, and as well as to have our regulations clarified.
Yeah, just as long as it goes on the list, we don't have to discuss it now, but just,
And then
Make it part of it.
at
Keep it
budget
active.
time next year, when the engineering department puts forth their sidewalk wish list, have them come here to present what their wish list is and what your wish list is.
And I think talking about sidewalks, I just wanted to clarify one thing. So if we have a plan, and the plan doesn't have sidewalk, and they say, we want a waiver,
Yeah.
but there is no sidewalk on the
You're not
plan,
presenting it.
right?
It's not presented.
So it's an incomplete application?
I think what we
we're
really
not-
need to do
we're not
is-
empowered to do that because it's in subdivisions only.
No, I'm just saying in general, I'm talking about specific case where
right.
we didn't have sidewalk
Right.
shown on the map.
The
But
waiver
we
can't be
waived.
asked if they're not
But
presenting.
we waived, but what did we waive? There was no sidewalk.
Right.
It's an incomplete
Right, but
application.
Done.
Right.
we need to discuss it as part of
Right.
added to our regulations in some way, shape, or form.
Or-
Whatever we decide, but it has to go into a regulation.
Or get the town council to modify the
What-
ordinance.
Whatever we need to
Because
do.
it's not.
I think
not
it's
really
both.
planned.
It needs to be memorialized.
both,
It can
yeah.
be both, but it needs to be memorialized, so
Yeah.
we're all on the same page with it, and it's there.
In general, we have to eliminate some ambiguities.
Bingo.
And we have more. I mean, there was the whole issue earlier this year about the distance between a fueling station and an educational institute and the past
Okay.
interpretations, and we should revisit that. Eliminate the ambiguity, it makes things flow better when we're trying to
Right.
do things.
Yeah, and eliminate like, oh, that's a precedent, that way you did for this, and you did
Yeah,
for this.
well,
I think,
My position on that particular issue was, it was Dividend Road, I think, from one end to the other. There were no sidewalks. And I think we have to clarify how we get the developer to put a certain percentage of money into the fund, rather than say, okay, we're gonna have 50 feet of sidewalk, and you're not gonna have any sidewalks for 3,000 feet on north or south of it. That's really.
and I think we can discuss that
There
at
there
the
needs to be
later
a yes,
date.
and then if no, a formula for the developer to do something.
Yeah,
There has to
and-
be a plan of action for both yes and no.
There is a
He was perfectly
process in
willing
the
to put some
subdivision regulations for setting the cost, but that's under subdivisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to broaden that, but just on the list.
Yeah. I think we can go to legislation update, we already did.
We kind of touched upon a lot of it.
Yep.
I would ask you to read what's in the,
There is no communications, right? There's no
No.
bills.
No.
So we need a motion to
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Pass.
would stay.
Hit the gavel. Hit it. Thank you.
Close.